here is because we have a professional skateboarder, stuntman, New York Times best-selling author, and a prominent actor from MTV's Jackass. And his name is Brandon Novak. And he's going to talk to us about his struggles with addiction and how this untreatable jackass got sober. He's going to tell you all about his story. It's quite a rough one, but hey, that's what we need to hear. We need to have this conversation. So get your questions ready, ears open, open heart, open mind, and let's do this thing.
And he's got well-rounded skills.
13 to 17 years old, he was sponsored by PAL, getting ready to go pro.
Brandon was an awesome skater. We heard all kinds of things about him being on drugs, and we couldn't believe it because he was such a great skateboarder.
You know, he's gonna be one of the next guys. And
Dude, I got it. I mean, you just got back on my fucking shady person. Yeah.
So here I am, fucking worried about you not getting time, and then you leave and go fucking do it again. Why not just kick me in the fucking face? 2 days, yesterday you told me you were clean for 3 days. You should, but I have a serious problem. I do. You know what I mean? I was at once a freshman skateboarder, now I'm competing now and then. What's that? What's that, dipshit? What the fuck is that? Asshole.
through the years, various rumors and sightings and things, and it didn't sound like he was doing very well.
His thing being heroin made him a little gnarlier. And then there were all the stories of the various things he did for heroin.
I think the saddest part about Brandon's life in that had he maintained his skating through the sort of dead years, when things came up again, he would have been in his prime. You know, he would have been in his early 20s, ready to go, and ready to make a mark. And yeah, he's friends with Bam, he's good looking, and you know, it would have been like he could have really made a career out of it.
And then a couple of years later, a horrible event was when his brother found him living in Baltimore City in a homemade house. That was heart-wrenching.
And what did you do?
As a matter of fact, I went and bought 2 cemetery plots, one for me and one for Brandon, because I said, you know, who else is going to bury Brandon but me? I just pray, I tell him, Brandon, please, I'm not going to get younger. Please straighten your life out before I go so that I can go gently into the good night.
I travel all over the nation and the world for that matter. In every state or city I go to, a mother will come up to me, a father will come up to me, a person in recovery, a person not in recovery, and they'll say, this state is the worst state. It is the heroin capital. And then I go to the next city, the next state. This state is the worst state. It is the heroin capital. And I say that to say not one of these states says, you know what, Novak? It's all right. It's pretty good. The reality is, this is no longer an epidemic, it's a pandemic. 152 people today will die as a direct result of an opioid overdose in the nation. 1 out of 7 people will be affected. It's worse than the HIV breakout. It's worse than drunk driving. And the reality is that it's 100% preventable. This thing is preventable. And the reality is I travel over and they say, what's the answer? What's the answer? What's the answer? If I had the answer, I would bottle it up and be a billionaire a billion times over. Unfortunately, there is no answer. So where that brings me to, is a lot of trial and error. A lot of trial and error. And I'm a firm believer of, I don't know what works, but I know lip service alone does not work. Right? So if it takes safe injection sites, if it takes needle exchange programs, I don't know. But I know that what's going on now is not working. You know? But what happened for me is people loved me when I didn't love myself. People showed up for me when I didn't show up for myself. People prayed for me when I didn't pray for myself. And you'll hear in my story, I was that addict, that alcoholic that was deemed unhelpable or unfixable. My mother had bought me a plot. People had taken life insurance policies out on me. And I was on life support for 7 days. My mother at the end went to God with one simple prayer. And that prayer consisted of, God, please cure him, or kill me because I can't take it anymore. How did I get there? How did I get there? Let me allow you guys to, God willing, understand how I got there. I got there because the disease of addiction does not discriminate. From Yale or jail, the White House or the outhouse, the results are all the same. And 1 out of 7 people will be affected. You know, I like to believe that I got there because I knew everything. And I sat in these chairs when someone would come tell their story such as mine, and I sat there with a closed mind and a closed heart. And I would say, thank God that man, that woman found their path. But God damn, I will not be them. I will never be them. As a matter of fact, I excelled at everything I did to not become that person. I came from better, I knew better. It's not like I lacked opportunities, chances, love. I had it. My mother just retired after 53 years of gainful employment at Mercy Hospital, second longest employer in Mercy Hospital history, as a nuclear physicist on the board. My brother today currently resides in the White House doing pensions and benefits as an attorney. My father died as a direct result of this disease of addiction. From smoking crack cocaine, his body shut down. And from a very young age, I saw what drugs and alcohol made him do to that man, what in turn made him do to us. And I hated drugs and alcohol, and I hated him. And I was never going to become him. I could not stand him, I could not stand drugs and alcohol, therefore anything I do, I'm going to excel at it and I'm going to do it great. And at the age of 7, I got my first skateboard. And that night when my mother put me to bed, she said, Brandon, what do you want me to do with the skateboard? I said, I want it in bed with me. She said, why? I said, because if I die, I want it to come with me. It was like God had came down and handed me the Holy Grail in the form of a skateboard. I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it. I was going to be a professional skateboarder. Schooling wasn't important. A trait wasn't important. Plan B was not important. And at 15, I was designing my pro model for Pau Peralta. At the age of 14, I was the first skateboarder in the world ever to be endorsed by Gatorade. They were flying me out to Chicago, to the Quaker Oats building. They would put me on one treadmill, Michael Jordan on another treadmill. They would put wires in our noses and down our throats and give us each Gatorade to see the effects that it has on different sports players. At 15, I'm designing my pro model for Pau Peralta, and I'm touring the world with Tony Hawk, Bucky Lasik, Mike Vallely, and I have a private tutor that goes with me. I wasn't that kid that suffered from low self-esteem or lack of self-worth. I wasn't that kid. I wasn't the kid that walked into class 20 minutes late in fear that everyone was staring at me. I was the kid that walked in class 20 minutes late and thought that everybody was waiting for me. Right? And the reason why I'm telling you this is because I'm trying to impress upon you how powerful this disease that I possess is. Right? I'm trying to paint a picture for you people to clearly understand that I didn't sit in those chairs and put my hand up and say, you know what? You know what will be a great idea? Is that by the time that I'm 35, I want to be a homeless heroin addict that lives on the streets of Baltimore City, who spends half of his day on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park selling his body for $40 to anybody that will buy. That's not what I said when I sat in these seats and I listened to somebody such as myself share their cautionary tale. But I'm one of the rare few that can actually stand up here and share this tale with you because statistics state, theoretical evidence dictates that I am to be high or dead right now. That's the cold hard numbers of all those mathematicians that like print out the data of what's going on in this war. And the fact that I'm not high or dead right now is A, miraculous, equaling miracle, and B, it defies logic. But God has granted me this gift of sobriety. And it's time for me to honor this gift and not just when it's convenient to me. So if it entails me jumping on a plane and coming out to the middle of nowhere in New Hampshire to sit here and like share a message of sobriety and freedom from active addiction, by all means. I can tell you the truth, I could be anywhere in the world right now, literally. And there's no place that I'd rather be than right here doing what I'm doing. Because my sponsor told me, if I prepare to stay sober, plan on continuously being divinely inconvenienced. And they told me in treatment, change your perception, change your world. So now I'm traveling the world. 15, I've designed my first pro model. Along the way, I found drugs and alcohol. Like I told you, I didn't suffer from low self-esteem, lack of self-worth, so it wasn't like as soon as I had to drink, I knew that was going to be my answer. But I was on a tour with a fellow by the name of Mike Vallely, and he found me with some drugs. And he said, get rid of the drugs or get off the tour. I throw the drugs down the sewer, I finish the demo, I meet a girl at the demo, I have her drive me back, I fish the drugs out of the sewer. Long story short, he catches me with the drugs and kicks me off the tour. I'm now home, and I get a phone call from my mentor, Tony Hawk, and he said, Brandon, we have one of two options we can do with you. We can put you into treatment, you can save your life, you can continue to be a professional skateboarder, or you can quit the team. I didn't have a breath of fresh air in my lungs when I said I quit. Because you'll hear in my story, anything, literally anything between me and that next bag, bottle, or pill must and will go. And it's not personal, it's very much businesslike. My delusional alcoholic mind, right? My delusional, meaning that it makes me believe things that are not real. That's how powerful my disease is. My delusional alcoholic mind said the skateboarding world needs me. It cannot go on without me. I am an asset. In reality, the skateboarding world did not need me. It went on quite fine without me. And I was a liability. But see, I'm the last person to see that. Because I know everything. So now I'm home, packages are not being delivered to my house, tours aren't being scheduled, flights aren't being booked because my behavior's rather erratic at best. One day my mom and my girlfriend come to me and they say, Brandon, we have a great idea. I said, what's that? They said, we want you to go to treatment. I thought about it and I said, that's a phenomenal idea. A, I have the time. B, I'm going to report to said treatment center, I'm going to report back to those two why I'm not those people, nor will I ever be. Overreaction at best. You caught me at a bad time, on a bad way, and a bad day. So I go into this first treatment center with a closed mind and a closed heart, proving a point why I was not those weirdos. I wasn't buying what you're selling, I'm not drinking your Kool-Aid. And it's Wednesday night, it's 10:30, I'm 17 years old. And they put me in this treatment center in Baltimore City, and I'm in this big cafeteria with these interrogation-style lighting shining on me. I'm ill as a research monkey. I'm going through withdrawal from lack of heroin. And out of nowhere, this older black gentleman walks up to me. He nor I had no idea the significance of this conversation would ever have in my life. He walked up to me and said, white boy, what are you doing here? I said, heroin. He said, how old are you? I said, 17. He said, do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this. And as quick as he came, he left. Follow me here, closed mind and closed heart, proving why I'm not those people. You know what I can tell you about that gentleman? I can tell you where the 4 teeth were placed in his mouth, because at at the time I had all mine. I can tell you that he's black, I'm white. He's 70 to 75, I'm 17. He smokes crack, my delusion mind says I successfully do heroin. He's homeless, I live with my mother and my girlfriend. God help him, I'm so happy he found his solution. You know what I can't tell you about that place? I can't tell you about the relapse prevention packet they're shoving down my throat. The healthy or unhealthy boundaries they're trying to instill in me. Or my counselor's name for that matter, because if I can tell you those things, that might mean that I can relate to being one of those people and I want no part. Disease untreated. I leave that treatment center with no defense against me and that first drink or drug, because I know everything. Closed mind and closed heart. All stems from that. The first auditorium, when someone such as myself came here and gave their cautionary tale, that couldn't be me, that will never be me. Closed mind and closed heart is kind of the root of my situation. And I leave that treatment center, disease untreated, no defense against me in that first one. And he was right, I didn't turn 18 in a place like that. I turned 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 27, 28, 29, 31, 32, 34, 35 in a jail or treatment center. And every year on my birthday, I would sit in whatever bunk, in whatever cell, of whatever jail I happened to be in, or whatever bed, or whatever treatment center I happened to be in, and think back to that older gentleman and say, maybe if me, myself, Brandon Novak, would have listened to him with an open heart and an open mind, I would not continuously find myself in these situations month after month, year after year, meaning that it was fully self-induced. I had now created or painted this picture for which I live in. And the way that I create that picture for which I now lived in is because Brandon attends Brandon's Anonymous, Brandon sponsors Brandon, and Brandon is Brandon's God. And then for the life of me, how am I back in the corner of Eastern Avenue or Patterson Park doing whatever it takes for $40? At a very young age, my mother told me, show me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. And that kind of carried over into the rest of my career, where I thought that social acceptability equaled personal recovery. And really what I know now that I didn't know then is I was trying to fill this internal void with the external solution. So if the home was big enough, the account was high enough, the woman was pretty enough, and the car was new enough, and you told me those things, that must mean that I'm doing well. So now I gotta do something up to build the outside up to hopefully coincide with the inside. And I trip and I fall into those movies, Jackass, and those TV shows, Viva La Bam. I'm now traveling the world, millionaire 3 times over by the age of 23, 24, but I can't keep a needle out of my arm, or a straw out of my nose, or a pill out of my mouth, or a bottle out of my mouth. And I keep going to these meetings and you people tell me that my life is unmanageable, and I believe that my life is unmanageable. But then I do an appearance at a nightclub, and they say, Mr. Novak, what would you like in your green room? And I'd say some heroin, some cocaine, some Xanax, and some wine. And they would give me those substances, I would take pictures, I would sign autographs, I would do shots, and at the end of the night I would get a check for $10,000. You tell me my life's unmanageable, I believe my life is unmanageable, my bank account seems pretty manageable, it is now my job to get high. And see, I told you I suffer from a delusional mind that tells me I don't have a disease, so follow me here. This is not debatable. It's not, you can look it up anywhere. If I'm diagnosed, or if anyone is diagnosed as an addict or an alcoholic, that disease left untreated is fatal. You die. That's facts. As far as I'm aware, it's the only fatal disease that tells me that I don't have a fatal disease on a daily basis. Diagnose me with HIV, I'm rushing to the hospital to get medication. I don't want to die, fatal disease. Diagnose me with cancer, I'm rushing to the hospital to get chemo. I don't want to die, fatal disease. Diagnose me as an addict or an alcoholic, I need a glass of wine or a bag of heroin to figure out what the fuck's wrong with you from diagnosing me with said disease. And it's just as fatal as the first 2 diseases, but left to my own devices. And when I say my own devices, meaning Brandon attends Brandon's Anonymous, Brandon sponsors Brandon, and Brandon's God, I will drop this podium and go right to the nearest liquor store and buy bottle after bottle of wine. And then I'll talk to you, I'll chat you up, I see you have a Narcotics Anonymous book, I'll somehow convince you to show me where the strip is here, and I'll go buy a whole bunch of heroin and cocaine. I've seen me do it. And I've seen me forget where I come from, and every time I do that, I always return. Because see, I have a selective memory when it plays in favor of my alcoholism. Follow me here. I can tell you, about 6 years back, on Halloween night, I went out with my then fiance to Ram's Head Pub. It was snowing, and I had 2 glasses of wine, and I was at home in bed by 9 p.m. I can tell you what bar stool I sat on. I can tell you the barkeep's name. I can tell you the music that was playing on the jukebox. I can tell you just like I'm holding this microphone, like it just happened. Why? Because that plays in favor of my alcoholism. It says that I can control it because once in basically 20 years, I was able to do what I set out to do. Go have 2 glasses of wine and go home and be in bed by 9 p.m. Oddly enough, my disease allows me to block out. Being medevac to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states with 4 different overdoses. Being in 13 inpatient treatment centers, losing count of outpatients and detoxes, my mother buying me a plot, people taking life insurance policies out of me, being on life support for 7 days. My disease doesn't want me to remember that because, whoa, maybe that allows me to see that I can do this. But I have that disease. It tells me I don't have a disease. And left to my own devices, meaning that I try to do this thing alone, I will leave that disease. So now, just like that skateboarding world, in this jackass world, flights are no longer being booked. Tours aren't being scheduled. Paychecks are being diverted to my ex-fiance. Because they say, if we book him the flight, will he show up? Let's say we book him the flight and he shows up, what condition will he be in? Let's say we book him the flight and he shows up. It's the same thing that's going to happen last time where we have to kick the bathroom door down at Paramount Studios and find him dead on the ground with a needle in his arm. My delusional alcoholic mind says the jackass world needs me. Cannot go on without me. I am an asset. In reality, the jackass world did not need me. It went on quite fine without me. And I'm a liability, but I'm the last person to see that because I know everything. Closed mind and a closed heart. So now I gotta come up with a plan of how I'm gonna beat this disease that I have. I'm in and out of treatment centers, but that doesn't work for me. You people haven't seen what I've seen. You haven't experienced what I've experienced. You haven't done what I've done. You didn't watch your father cut your mother's throat at the age of 7. Your father didn't take you to the strip joint, and when he was in the back conducting business, leave you at the bar stool, and when the pretty girls poured me shots of ginger ale and Coca-Cola, I would do the shots, and they would applaud, and my father would give me that look of approval. You guys didn't end up in these movies that break box office records, and it afforded me the opportunity to break a lot of bones. Every time I go to the emergency room, they say, hey, this is the guy from the movies. He can't be a junkie, so they're very generous with the script pad. You people didn't experience that. Because I'm internally unique, right? Strap me up to a polygraph. I will pass with flying colors. I have a plan. This plan is going to work. I bet my mother on this, and I love that woman more than anything in this world. I will bet my mother on it. This plan is going to work. I'm going to move to Helsinki, Finland. Yeah, right? I'm going to move to Helsinki, Finland. It's literally across the world. They don't even speak my language. I'm going to go there, I'm going to regroup, I'm going to rebrand, I'm going to reassess, I'm going to reevaluate, I'm going to fucking redo life. And I mean it. God, I mean it. I don't like the results that I'm getting from drugs and alcohol here in Westchester, Pennsylvania. So clearly, Westchester, Pennsylvania is the problem. Clearly, Baltimore is the problem. I'm going to Finland. I jump on a plane. I land in Finland. My mother saying, show me who you walk with, I'll tell you who you are. Social acceptability equals personal recovery. Filling this internal void with an external solution, I go to this 5-star hotel. Very swanky joint. And when I go to the lobby bar, there's these businessmen in these very expensive suits having meetings. Right? Show me who you walk with, I'll tell you who you are. I can't associate with people that are like me, because then I'll see me for who I really am. And I go to the lobby bar and I get bottle after bottle of wine. And I meet a fella, he gives me a phone number. Now I have bags and bags of heroin being delivered. And I go in the bathroom and I call my sponsor, Lex, and I said, Lex, how did this happen? This was not supposed to be this way. I didn't want to do this. He said, let me tell you something, Mr. Know-It-All. Let me tell you something, genius. I guess you skimmed over that part where it talks about geographical change does not equal recovery. Let me tell you something else, Mr. Nono. You can't shake your shadow. You take you with you everywhere you go. I put you in Finland, you shoot dope. I put you in New Hampshire, you shoot dope. I put you in Africa, you shoot dope. It snows, you shoot dope. It rains, you shoot dope. People die, you shoot dope. People were born, you shoot dope. They talk about triggers. My triggers are when my eyelids open. I can justify why anything, any place, any reason, any feeling makes sense to get high. And I'll leave and I'll carry this microphone and get high until I get tired of carrying this microphone. And when I get tired of carrying this microphone, it doesn't fucking matter because my disease says you don't have the privilege to drop that microphone. And I don't. And I keep carrying it. And he said, let me tell you something else, Mr. No, drugs and alcohol, they're not your problem. What do you mean they're not my problem? I've literally just moved across the world. I've given it everything. I've given it my women, I've given it my careers, I've given it my homes, I've given it my sexuality, you name it, have it, I've given it everything. I said, no, that's not the problem. The drugs and alcohol are not your problem, they're your solution. Your problem is your thinking, your attitude, and your behavior. Because if it was just as simple as putting it down, I'd be great. I'd be great. So I jump on a plane and I come back. Now I'm the kind of alcoholic that I want to kill myself on a daily basis. But the hit is I don't want to hurt myself in the process. Strap me up to that polygraph. I passed. Tomorrow is going to be different. I mean it. I want it. I feel it. I see it. It's going to be different. God, it's going to be different. Only to wake up tomorrow to repeat yesterday's actions and be stuck in Groundhog's Day for the better part of 15 years. So I gotta come up with a new plan. How did I get here? My mother's a nuclear physicist. My brother's an attorney in the White House. First skateboarder ever to be endorsed by Gatorade. Travel the world with Tony Hawk, private tutor that goes with. Been in movies that break box office records. A millionaire a few times over between the ages of 23 and 24. Have did things in life that people equate to success or happiness and something to dream of doing. Lived with that cautionary tale, swore I would never become my father. Hated him, hated what drugs and alcohol made him do to us. I am going to excel because I hate drugs. My mother's bought me a plot. People have taken life insurance policies out on me. My mother did an interview, and this is common knowledge, you can look it up on the internet. And she said, I used to pray not to get that phone call. I used to pray not to get that phone call. To at the end, praying to get that phone call. Just to have a peace of mind. The woman I love more than anything in this world is now praying to get that phone call just so she can breathe easy. It's not like I'm a fool by any means. I come from better, I know better, so now social acceptability, personal recovery, internal void, external solution. I gotta build the outside up to hopefully correlate with the inside. I decide I'm gonna write a book. I have no high school diploma. I have no GED. I was not kindly asked to leave school due to drugs and alcohol, go figure. But I decided I'm gonna write a book. Later on, after the book gets published, I end up in prison, and I get my GED in prison. And the reason why I got it was because A, I had the time, and B, if you passed the GED in the joint, you got a pizza party that was supplied by Domino's. So I don't know about anybody else, but that's kind of a no-brainer when you're in prison. But here's the hit. I passed that GED like I was a Harvard graduate. I aced that thing. And the reason why I aced it is because it was my idea. Right? It was my idea. So I excelled at a rapid pace. But because I know everything, as soon as you tell me what I need to do, I tell you why you need to fuck off because I know. If it was my idea, I would have excelled at a rapid pace and been a billboard for any treatment center, been a billboard for any Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous program, any doctor's office, any psychiatrist's office. But no, I didn't come up with it, you did. So I'm gonna show you by shooting dope in my arm. Because I know. So I write this book. The book gets published. I'm now a published author. I'm now a published author who has written an autobiography addiction memoir. So now I'm a published author who has written an autobiography addiction memoir, and the book becomes a New York Times top 10 seller. And I did this all while getting high. All while getting high. All of a sudden, I'm receiving hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail from all over the world. People like you saying, Novak, I read your book, I didn't want my story to get as bad as yours, I have 30 days. People like you saying, I read your book, I understand when my son picks the needle over coming to have dinner with me on the weekends. It's not because I was a bad mother, it's because he suffers from the disease of addiction. My delusional alcoholic mind said I just wrote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, or the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous. For those of you who don't understand what that is, that's like the Bible for people in recovery. It's our guide to life, right? The night of my book release in New York City at Times Square, my literary agent's there, my publisher's there, my manager's there, all these very well-to-do people in the scholarly world. I don't have any heroin that day. My people wouldn't give me any money to get any heroin that day, because what I didn't know then that I understand now is it would not be a good look, me sitting at a Barnes & Noble signing these books that are written on addiction as I fall asleep due to heroin. But I have a buddy with me from Baltimore, and he doesn't feel good either. And all of a sudden they're wheeling my books in on these big dollies, in these boxes, and me and my buddy, we take one look at each other, we don't say a word, but we have a complete sentence with each other, that language of the heart. And I stand up, he stands up in a unified precision, he walks over to my books, I walk over, I grab 2 boxes, he grabs 2 boxes, we run out of the Barnes & Noble right to the Amtrak train station, and we jump on the next train going back to Baltimore. And I autograph and sign it to 2 different stores. I'm now stealing my own autobiography addiction memoir books from my release at Barnes & Noble's to take back to Baltimore to sell and buy more heroin. Because I have that disease that tells me I don't have a disease. And do you think my disease would understand if I say, hey, not right now, I got a book signing to do? That's funny. That's a joke. Needless to say, I get back to Baltimore, I autograph, I sign them. My delusional alcoholic mind says the literary world needs me, it cannot go on without me. I am an asset, the next Stephen King or Edgar Allan Poe, if you will. In reality, the literary world did not need me. When I'm quite fine without me, I'm a liability. But I was the last person to see or know that. So I go back to my home in Pennsylvania, where me and my fiance at the time were living, and when I go to put the key in the lock doesn't work. And I kick the door in. And when I get in there, the house is completely empty. She had taken my cats, she had taken my paintings, she had taken the furniture, her clothes, my clothes, everything was gone. And I found myself in this fetal position in the corner of this house, crying uncontrollably. And what came to my mind, that older gentleman from that first treatment center that said, boy, do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this. This house was a spitting image of me. I'm in this big shell of an empty house, and I'm a big shell of an empty man, crying uncontrollably because I lost I didn't lose it. I didn't lose anything in my career. I gave it away for another $10 bag. Because I had given something else, yet again, that I love. And at the time, my mother calls me and she said, Brandon, I'm from Baltimore City, and I don't know if anyone in this room remembers when the police killed that young black man, Freddie Gray. And my mother lived about 15 blocks from where that incident had occurred. And she said, Brandon, I'm terrified. Can you come watch out for me? Because at the time, Baltimore City was like the movie The Purge. They were robbing, they were looting, they were shooting, they were stealing, they were burning blocks down, burning police cars down. The National Guard was on every corner with their machine guns and their tanks, and there was a 10 o'clock curfew. No one was to be on the streets. And she said, can you come take care of me? My intentions were to go take care of that woman. I told you how much I loved her. My intentions were to make sure she was safe. disease doesn't give a shit about intentions. My actions dictate I go back to her house and I scurry up into this bedroom. And I leave that bedroom once a day to go buy $180 worth of heroin and cocaine. First skateboarder to ever be endorsed by Gatorade. Traveling the world with Tony Hawk, I have a private tutor that comes with me. Have been in movies that broke box office records. Millionaire 3 times over between the age 23 and 24. New York Times top 10 selling author. Did things in life that people equate to success or happiness that some dream of doing. On the flip side, mother's bought me a plot. People have taken life insurance policies out on me. I just got off life support for 7 days. My mother's now simply gone to God with one prayer, and that prayer consists of, God, please cure him, or kill me, because I can't take it anymore. She's depleted several savings accounts. She's sold 3 homes to financially pay for me to go to treatment. She has nothing left to offer. In theory and on paper, a very successful individual. I did things in life that people equate to success or happiness that some even dream of doing. Mother nuclear physicist, brother attorney in the White House. Lived with that cautionary tale, swore I would never become that man of my father or that older gentleman from the first treatment center. In reality, I'm a 35-year-old man who lives in his mother's bedroom because she now sleeps on the sofa downstairs in fear that I'm going to burn the house down from smoking and falling asleep. My worldly possessions consist of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, and 1 stick of deodorant that fits into a bag that doubles as my pillow. And every morning at 4:30, my eyes open religiously. I don't have an alarm clock, I don't own a watch, but for some reason my disease says, boy, wake up, and I wake up. And every morning I step very quietly on each stair to get to the bottom of the stairs. And I know exactly where to step, because God forbid I step on the wrong stair in the wrong position and it makes a noise and my mother wakes up and says, Brandon, can you make me something to eat? I fucking can. Don't ask me right now. Don't do this, it's not personal, it's business. And I would sneak down, I would get to the bottom of the stairs and I would get on all 4 and I would army crawl across the living room. And this hand would grab her purse and this hand would grab the bell that she attached to her purse. And I would gently slide it over to me, because God forbid that bell makes noise and she says, Brandon, what are you doing? Don't ask. How am I here? How did I find myself in this position? I didn't sit in those chairs and say, I want to be a homeless heroin addict at the age of 35. I excelled at everything I did to not be in this position. I laughed at that older gentleman from that first treatment center. Said, thank God he found his deal, but you don't understand me, I'm different. I hate my father, I'll never be him. The disease of addiction does not discriminate. So one day I'm out and I'm going to buy my $180 worth of heroin and cocaine and I make it back to my house and the door's locked. I knock on the door and my mother answers and my brother from the attorney from the White House comes down those stairs. And they went up in that bedroom that I left once a day for 3 months. And the bedroom looked like a murder scene. There's blood on the ceilings, there's blood on the walls, there's needles, there's cookers, there's bags, there's ties, you name it, it's in there. And with that, my mother said, Brandon, I will no longer love you to death. You have to go. And immediately following that, a police officer came around the corner and served me with a restraining order. First skateboarder to be endorsed by Gatorade, traveled the world with Tony Hawk, New York Times top 10 selling author, been in movies that break box office records, New York fit. My mother's a nuclear physicist, my brother's an attorney in the White House. In theory, on paper, I'm a successful individual now. In reality, I'm a 35-year-old man walking the streets of Baltimore. My mother just served me the restraining order. My worldly possessions consist of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant, and 4 cigarette butts that I dug out of a receptacle. How did I get here? How did I get here? I got here because I have a disease that tells me I don't have a disease. And I thought that I could do this on my own without the help of anybody else, because I know everything. Because I sat there with a closed mind and closed heart and said, that will never become me. I came from better, I know better. I'm walking up the street. My friends have left the country. That's a whole other story that I don't have time to get into right now. They went to Australia. I was supposed to go with them. They kicked me off the tour. That's why I'm back in Baltimore. My mother served me the restraining orders. I have nowhere to go.
And I'm walking up the streets and I go to this abandoned house, this shooting gallery where you go and you get high. And I'm sitting in the shooting gallery and my phone goes off and it's this woman. And she said, I read your book. It saved my life. What do you say about an all-exclusive paid trip to Fort Lauderdale? I said, that's great. I need some heroin, some cocaine, some Xanax, and some wine. She says, no problem. That's red flag number 1. My book saved her life, but she's going to give me substances that kill mine, but I don't care because I don't want my life. I do a little bit more research. I realize she lives in a hotel. That's not a good look either. I do a little bit more research. I realize she's a lady of the night or a dancer, which I have no problem with because I've seen me become both of those things for $10. She has 2 requirements that I must fulfill when I touch down in Fort Lauderdale. Mind you, she's paying for everything. Airfare, food, drugs. When I get to Fort Lauderdale, she wants to party. She wants to make love, for lack of better words. And when I do heroin, I do neither. I sleep. And I know I'm going to wear my welcome out really quick, and I don't want to learn homelessness in Fort Lauderdale. It's hot, it's sandy, I don't know the hustles. And I'm forgetting to mention that I am to see my probation officer tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Right? I'm supposed to be in Pennsylvania. I'm not supposed to leave the state of Pennsylvania. I'm supposed to be clean and sober. I'm supposed to be in her office at 8:30 a.m. and I'm supposed to produce a clean urine. I'm in Baltimore City. I have a needle hanging out of my arm. I'm about to board this flight to catch a red eye to Fort Lauderdale, and if I were to piss into a cup, it would light up like a Christmas tree. I have that disease. It tells me I don't have a disease. It makes me believe things that are not believable. My disease says, don't worry, catch a red eye to Fort Lauderdale, and you'll be able to make it back by 8:30 to Westchester, Pennsylvania, and give her a clean urine. And I believe it. I believe it so much so that I get dressed as if this is going to happen. So I put these slacks on, I put this button-up shirt on, and I put these nice, at one point in time, Brooks Brothers shoes, but I've lost a shoestring along the way because I had to look good tomorrow morning for when I see this PO. I really believe that I'm going to do this. But before I get on this flight out of Baltimore, I got to go get a few things from the boys because I can't be sick on the flight. At the time, I don't wear underwear because, like, my life is consumed by getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. That's what my life consists of. I don't wash underwear. I don't find imaginary drawers in alleys of Baltimore to put them in and take care of. I get high. So when I go to get the things from the boys, they see fit to rob me as opposed to serve me. And when they rob me, they rip my front and my back pockets completely out. Now my front and my back are completely exposed. They rip my shirt open. The only button that stays buttoned is this very top button. I got these shoes on one shoestring. I'm roaming the streets of East Baltimore looking like a gay East LA cholo gangbanger at this point. That didn't work out as planned. I don't want to go to Fort Lauderdale, but I have a disease that tells me I got to get on this plane. I don't have the option to not get on this plane. I know it's going to end really bad if I get on this plane and go to Fort Lauderdale. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. God, I don't want to do it. I remember like it was right in front of my face. And I get to the airport. And when I get up to the ticket counter line, the woman takes one look at me. She says, Mr. Novak, are you under the influence of anything? I say no. She says, I believe you are. You will not fly for 72 hours. Not like the next flight or tomorrow morning, 3 days. My delusional alcoholic mind said, I bet her son or daughter has an issue with drugs or alcohol. She's blaming her kid's disease on me. How dare this woman piss on my parade? In reality, nobody dressed the way I was dressed would be allowed to walk outside, let alone board a flight. 2 things I've learned in my career: I will never win an argument with a judge or a TSA airport security agent. What they say goes. I told you I didn't want to get on that flight. My heart was beating like I just shot 10 kilos of cocaine. I did not want to get on that flight, but I don't know how to not get on the flight because my disease says get on the flight. What happened, this guy dressed up in the form of a TSA airport security agent did for me what I could not do for myself. I get out of line. I call that same sponsor, Lex, that I called from Finland. I said, Lex, I'm stranded at the airport. I want to kill myself. He said, no, you're going to get on a train. You're going to come back to Philly. We're going to pick you up. Memorial Day 2015. A series of events take place. They pick me up. They take me to see my PO. My PO grants me one more opportunity to go to treatment. And I go to the same treatment that I had been to 4 previous times. This is now number 13. The 4 previous times, the interaction went like this. I would go and she'd say, okay, Mr. Novak, your insurance covers 90 days. And I'd say, in theory, that sounds great, but in reality, I'm more like a 45-day kind of fellow. I have this woman to see, this job to fulfill, and this state to go to, and she'd laugh at me each and every time and say, sweetheart, you have no idea. Anything and everything that you put in front of your recovery does not and will not matter because you will lose it. I said, I guess you didn't see my resume. New York Times top 10 seller, written a book on addiction, been in movies that break box office records, first skateboarder be endorsed by Gatorade, travel home with Tony Hawk, millionaire 3 times over, mother nuclear physicist, brother an attorney in the White House, father was a drug addict. I hate him, I hate drugs, I'll never become them. Ignorance is bliss, but when I know him to be held accountable, and I remembered her sitting in that chair telling me the same thing. And now when I walk in at 35 years old, my worldly possessions consisting of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant, I've been demoralized in just such a fashion by drugs and alcohol. I've been beaten into a state of reasonableness, where I'm at a point in my life I'm so low that the curve looks like a skyscraper. I'm horrible at suicide because I keep waking up. And I go in there and she says, Mr. Novak, your insurance covers 90. And when she gave me that offer, I couldn't come back with a counter offer because if I said no, that entailed an explanation. All I could do was shake my head yes. I was literally beaten speechless by the disease of addiction. She said, you're in no condition to do your intake. Get up to detox. I'll see you in 4 days. I get up to detox. There's this 19-year-old tech working. And he said, oh, Mr. Novak, you're back. I said, aren't you a fucking genius? And he said, your clothes are not rehab oriented. You need some underwear, you need some sweatpants, you need some slides, you need some socks. And the fact of the matter was, I never prayed for such simple articles of clothing so bad in my life. But my disease didn't allow me to own underwear, sweatpants, slides. It said, you get me when I call. He said, come downstairs to the donations room of this Catholic Charities Rehab. New York Times top 10 seller, first skateboarder endorsed by Gatorade, travel world with Tony Hawk, mother nuclear physicist, been in movies that break box office records, millionaire a few times over, brother attorney in the White House. In theory, no paper, I'm a successful individual. I did things in life that people equate to success or happiness and some even dream of doing. I am now a 35-year-old man standing in the basement of the Catholic Charities Rehab, praying to God that this 19-year-old kid finds me a pair of 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 10th hand pair of used underwear. How did I get here? I am that guy from the first treatment center. If I would have just listened with an open heart and an open mind and not compared out, I probably would not be here. I'm praying to God he finds a pair of 10th hand pair of underwear, but he doesn't. He finds a pair of women's size 40 sweatpants with no drawstring. Finds a woman's tank top, and he finds a pair of size 13 Jesus sandals. I don't know how alert or attentive anybody in this room is, but I'm not a woman and I don't wear a size 13. Right? But what had happened is God showed up in the basement of that Catholic Charities Rehab, that gift of desperation. Showed up in the basement of that Catholic Charities Rehab as this guy thumbs through these boxes looking for a pair of underwear for me. And what happens is I went from knowing to now knowing that I don't fucking know. And my very best thinking, despite all those accolades that I told you about, have gotten me here. And with that gift of desperation, that God moment, came this side of willingness like I've never experienced. And now I'm willing and happily able to wear these women's clothing. I want to go up and get a shower. I successfully complete that 90-day treatment center. From that 90-day treatment center, I go to a sober living house for 1 year. I have been on parole and probation since I was 16 to 35, never had a free day in between. 2 years and some change ago, I signed my release papers. I'm literally a free man that can go anywhere with anybody whenever I want. I decided I wanted to get my 2-year medallion abroad, and I flew out to Paris to pick it up. I no longer live in that self-induced 4-block radius of a prison that cost me $10 to get out of on a daily basis.